Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free. This is a live show and our guest will be happy to answer any of your questions. If you have a question for the guest, please leave a message on the chat window on nrisamay.com/live. Thank you for your support.
Friends, welcome back to NRI Samay. This is your host, Sri Hari. We'll be talking to an incredible person, Jagdeep Chhokar. He is the founder of Association for Democratic Reforms. Today's topic is the RTI, and recently the Cabinet of India, they have decided that political parties does not come under the purview of RTI. This is basically strip our rights. And today it may begin with the political parties, but tomorrow it could be a different department in the government too. Before we begin, our guest, I want to say a couple of words about him. Jagdeep Chhokar was a professor, is a teacher, trainer, researcher and advisor of management and organizational behavior at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, for about 20 years until 2006. He is also a citizen activist for improving democracy and governance in the country, a birdwatcher and conservationist, and a trained lawyer. Before becoming a professor, he was an engineer manager with the Indian Railways and worked as an international marketing manager for 4 years. His educational qualifications, my friends, are LLB, PhD, MBA, mechanical engineering graduate, and also production engineering graduate. He has taught in several countries, including Australia, France, Japan, and the US. His professional interests cover all aspects of organizational functioning, cross-cultural management, international marketing, international management, international business, and so forth. Friends, his broader interests include electoral and political reforms, informed choice, which is freedom of information, world affairs, and ornithology, which is bird watching. Jagdish sir, namaste. Welcome to NRI Samay.
Namaste. Thank you.
Sir, you are one of the founding members at Association for Democratic Reforms. Today we want to talk about RTI and the changes that our political parties want to bring. But before we go there, could you please tell me about ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms?
This organization, which is called ADR, was set up in December of 1999 at Ahmedabad. And the founding people were there were 11 people who founded it. 8 were professors at the Indian Institute of Management, the IIM at Ahmedabad. 2 were the alumni of IIM Ahmedabad, and 1 was a professor of the National Institute of Design, NIT in Ahmedabad. This organization works on improving governance and democracy in the country. We started focusing on political governance, and within that, we focused on criminalization of politics. We actually originally filed a public interest litigation in the Delhi High Court and then in the Supreme Court, which made it mandatory for candidates contesting elections to declare their criminal, financial, and educational background. That we have been tracking for the last now 10 plus years. It was during that process that we came across the role of money in the political process, and we filed applications under the Right to Information Act seeking copies of income tax returns of political parties. That was contested by political parties, but after a 2.5-year struggle, we were able to get those. Once we got copies of the income tax returns, we discovered that they explain only about 20% of their income, not the remaining 80%. And that is when we decided to pursue making them public authorities under the Right to Information Act, so that whatever information a common citizen needs about the functioning. Yeah, the income tax returns disclosed only details of 20% of their income. The balance 80% was not, it was not clear where was that money coming from. And that is when we asked political parties for details of that, they told us that they are not public authorities under the Right to Information Act. Now that prompted us to think this issue through, and we discovered that there are several reasons why political parties satisfy the definition of a public authority as given in the Right to Information Act. And therefore we appealed to the Central Information Commission. There were 3 hearings where these 6 national political parties were represented by senior lawyers and advocates, and the Central Information Commission, a full bench of the Central Information Commission was convinced that these 6 national political parties fulfilled conditions which qualified them to become public authorities, and that is why the order was given.
Yeah. But before we go into the technical details, I would like to understand why is it important for us, for people, for common people to know where this money is coming from, and what could be the effect if nobody cares about it? What is the potential effect that we are dealing with?
You see, the electoral and political system in India has come to be governed more and more by what is called money power. Earlier, there used to be 2 problems with the system, muscle power and money power. Muscle power used to, people used to be forced to vote, not according to their choice, but according to what a more powerful person wanted them to do. And there was a phenomenon called booth capturing and so on. Now, a lot of the muscle power has now been taken care of because of the electronic voting machines and several other actions that the Election Commission of India has taken. But in that context, the role of money power seems to have increased. There have been instances of political parties or candidates giving money to voters to vote for them. There have been instances where several illegal actions such as distribution of alcohol and so on have been done. And out of, 6,743 candidates, 6,739 said that they spent only about 50% of the limit, whereas politicians and candidates have been making public statements. There's a very prominent person in Maharashtra who said that he spent 8 crores in the election, whereas the limit was only 25 lakhs. And this was a public statement made in a televised public meeting. Recently, a senior politician in Haryana said that if one can spend 100 crores, he or she can get elected to the Rajya Sabha. Now, if you can buy votes in the legislature or seats in the legislature, then we don't really have a democracy. Therefore, financing of the public political parties and the political candidates is a kind of a fundamental to an effective and working and a functioning democracy. And so long as the source of the money that political parties get is not known, one does not know who is controlling them. One could pay a huge sum of money to a political party and make that party win the election and then control all its actions.
Yeah.
Therefore, transparency in political funding is absolutely necessary for a democracy, I think.
Yeah, I think it's so. The debate is whether these political parties fall under the purview of RTI or not is what is being debated now. But you are saying, irrespective of that, because of the impact that these political parties can have on the people and how the government runs, we should know, because we they're answerable for the people, and because they are going to rule us tomorrow, right, and today, so they should answer to what we are asking.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
We are giving them the authority to rule over us. And therefore, we need to know what they do, how do they do it, where do they get their money from.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. If you have any interesting episode you would like NRI Samay to cover, we will be happy to do so. NRI Samay would also like to encourage amateur journalists who have a flair for highlighting current events. You can be part of our citizen journalist team. You could cover an important event, interview victims of an atrocity, or document an inspirational story. The idea is to have a mix of experience throughout all parts of the world, preferably supported by an audio or a video clip of your story to be aired, which will be the curtain raiser. You can also submit your opinion articles on important topics to NRI Samay. We will be happy to put it on nrisamay.com in the opinion section. All your work will be credited only to you. And if you're interested, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com.
From your experience and what you have seen, and from your perspective, could you tell where are these, what are the sources? Where are these, because we are talking about hundreds and maybe thousands of crores per each election across all constituencies. So where is this money coming from your perspective?
First of all, let me give you an idea of the scale. A former chief election commissioner, when he was actually the chief election commissioner when he was in office, said that 10,000 crores was spent in the election in UP. UP is a large state, maybe the largest state, but it is only one of 29 states.
Right.
If 10,000 crores is spent in the election of one state, you can imagine how much would be spent in the election of 29 states plus the parliament. So the amounts of money are actually staggering. When we look at the income tax returns of political parties, they explain, as I said, 20% of their income, shown as very often through donations by well-wishers and through what is called sale of coupons. Now, there is no clarity about who these well-wishers are, how much money does the well-wisher pay, and who are the people who buy these coupons and whatnot. The Election Commission asked the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India to draw up a pro forma in which a political party should maintain its accounts.
Yeah.
And the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India suggested a pro forma, and they also said that for sale of coupons, each coupon ought to be numbered and a counter foil should be retained so that proper accounting and auditing can be done.
Yeah.
But these recommendations were unanimously rejected by all political parties in a meeting with the Election Commission. So the money, there is only speculation on where the money comes from. And the speculation is that a lot of this money is what is called black money here, which is unaccounted money, which is generated through illegal activities and through crime and through drugs and all kinds of smuggling and so on. So it is very difficult to say what the sources are. And while I say this, I am also very conscious that, it is irresponsible to say this. But in the absence of any information, one, suspects the worst. And when making them public authorities under RTI gives them an opportunity to come out clean on the sources of this money, they try and undo that decision. So therefore, the suspicion gets further strengthened, and this is a very sad situation indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so just wondering, I mean, it's how much money is been pumped into the electoral system, and where do they get the money? Even people who are donating this money, it's mind-boggling to think. Obviously, it's a return on investment, right? So they are thinking they'll make more money. But again, going back from your experience, can you give maybe an example or two on what this means for common person? I mean, because at a high level, it could look like, some wealthy guy giving money and maybe he's getting some benefit. What does it mean for a normal person?
For the normal person, the development of the country suffers. For example, if a business person donates, let us say, 1,000 crores to a political party, now he or she donates it in the hope that when the political party comes into power, they will give him or her contracts or licenses so that he can make money out of them, which is at exorbitant rates, which are not justified by the common economics of the country. So this leakage and exploitation of natural resources of the country, and also from civic contracts like construction of roads and drainage and so on, all that work is not done effectively because people who donate money to political parties, then they expect a quid pro quo, and of course all this goes into the black economy of the country. And the black economy is not subject to taxation, it is not subject to any law, and the money available for building the nation, making the infrastructure of the nation, is lost to private pockets.
Yeah, that's true. So the latest news is that they amended RTI, right? That's what, if I understand correctly.
So the latest news is that the cabinet yesterday, the proposal to amend the RTI Act to add a sentence or a clause to the definition of public authority, which it has been reported in the media that the clause will say that this definition of public authority shall not apply to political parties registered with the Election Commission of India, and this issue will not be allowed to be taken up in the court.
Yeah,
this is the media report.
So if I understood correctly, the CIC is supposed to be an independent body, and when they make a decision, the government, I don't know if they can or cannot, but they should. The right way to contest is to go to the court, right? Instead of cabinet sitting together.
Now, the normal, you see, the CIC is a statutory authority. It has been constituted under a law that was passed by this very parliament. CIC and the RTI Act have been passed by the same parliament, which is today saying that this act, although we passed it, it is applicable to everybody else, but it shall not be applicable to us.
Yeah.
The normal recourse for everybody else, any citizen or any other public authority, is to go to the court. One can file what is called a writ in the High Court to challenge the decision. Now that is the normal legal course. But what is being done, what is being proposed to be done in the Parliament is actually not legal.
Yeah. So there is but is this final, or do they need to pass a bill, or is it considered final? I mean, is it the end of our dream of bringing political parties under the purview, or do you think there will be a public interest litigation or something like that?
Well, it is certainly not the end of the dream. The dream will continue, and the cabinet has approved the proposal. Now the government will bring a bill to amend the RTI Act into the Parliament. It is expected, sadly, that the bill will be passed unanimously. Then the President will have to give his assent. Then it will become law. Now, actions are currently on to inform all members of parliament. Several people have written thousands of letters to all members of parliament and all political leaders that they should not be done. It is still hoped that, wise counsel might prevail and it may not happen. But if it is indeed passed, then the president will be approached not to give his assent. If the assent is given and it does become a law, then it will be challenged in the court.
Okay.
So the dream is not over, the dream will continue, but the dream will have to be fought for.
Right. And the citizens of India, I mean, concerned citizens, they are calling the MPs and they are writing letters to the President and PM, and I think there is also online petitions that are going on. So do you think...
Yes, there will be, and there will also be physical, gatherings on the 6th and 7th of this month, because the first day of Parliament is on the 5th.
Uh-huh. So
business is transacted. The formal business will begin on the 6th and 7th, and there will be gatherings of people all across the country where people will physically get together to request or to suggest to the Parliament not to do this.
So the gathering is going to be in front of the Parliament?
Well, in Delhi, it is going to be at what is called Jantar Mantar, which is a very standard place for these kinds of gatherings.
Yeah.
Whereas in other cities, it will be at different locations.
That's true. I mean, there is no substitute for people raising their voice for what they want, but do you think they got their skin got pretty thick, and are they considering these protests, or do you think there is a value, and if so, what would you tell the people?
Well, there doesn't seem to be any option, Srihari, because the political establishment as a whole seems to be bent upon doing this. And this is not the only thing. The other thing which we have not talked about, which of course is not the focus of this program, is that there have been 3 judgments from the Supreme Court of India. And there was also a proposal in the all-party meeting which was held yesterday to undo those judgments, which tends to, the attempt of those judgments is to reduce the impact of criminalization on politics. But those judgments are also likely to be undone based on the news reports of yesterday.
Wow, so you're talking about...
It's a very difficult time. All these attempts to improve the political and electoral system seems to be not liked by the political establishment.
Yeah, obviously you're talking about Supreme Court judgment to saying that politicians cannot contest in elections even if they are in jail, even if it's not proven. And it also said if they are convicted, then they have to resign, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So
actually, it is not the Supreme Court which has said this. What the Supreme Court has said is that there is an article in the Constitution of India which says that a person who is in jail will not be allowed to vote.
Yeah.
And there is another article in the Constitution which says that a person who cannot vote cannot contest the election. So what has been done, this was brought to the notice of the Supreme Court, that these two things read together show that a person who is in jail should not be allowed to contest election. And the Supreme Court said, yes, this seems absolutely logical. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. But, I mean, so these are pretty shameless acts, right? I mean, what would be, if they don't have anything to hide, why would they not disclose, their sources of income, which is, and now they're supposed to be opposition. There is a ruling party, there is opposition. They're all coming together and they're saying, no, we don't want to do this. And similarly, the one that you mentioned about the political parties with criminal background, now they don't want to do it. It's a very shameful thing to go in front of public and saying this. But at the same time, what can public do? I mean, they're busy with their work. They're going to the office. Then they have to watch movies or maybe cricket. I'm not saying nobody cares about it, but they are supposed to have their normal life too, right? So, at what point these political parties, care about people, what people are thinking?
Well, I wish I knew. I don't have an answer to that question. And you're right. I mean, in a way, it is shameful, but I would not sort of use that expression. I would say it is sad and it is very tragic for the state of governance in the country. I mean, it's very, very sad and disheartening to see that people who are supposed to be our leaders, who are supposed to take care of the well-being of people and well-being of the country, are behaving in this manner.
I believe India has ratified the international standards on the corruption, right? I think UNACC.
Yeah. India is a signatory.
Yeah. Then what does that? I mean, are these not against those that ratification?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess we need to fight at the international level too, I guess, on an international platform.
Well, I would not advocate, in my opinion, trying to get other countries to interfere with what India is doing. I think the fight within India with the support of the judiciary and people's institutions is rather strong. The government and the political class is being given a tough fight. But I personally feel that for a foreign country to tell India what to do is not really the most advisable thing.
Yeah. So political parties are being funded by the coupons, like you mentioned, and so the citizens have absolutely no clue about all of this. And donations in the name of coupons are collected in crores. So that's where the RTI comes in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thousands of crores.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why RTI comes into place. Now, if they dilute this one, but what are the other revenues that we, if private parties are giving money or even organizations are giving crores and the hundreds of crores or thousands, what are the other revenues that citizens can take up to disclose these things?
You see, ultimately it will have to be public pressure. There is no other legal avenue as far as I can think. But public pressure, you see, the situation for the last 10, 15 years has been moving in the direction of greater transparency and greater accountability.
Yeah.
Now, the political class seems to be fighting and swimming against that current. I think it is going to be a fairly long struggle, because what we need is a change in the mindset of the political class, that they are not the rulers. There is in the good old British system, there is a saying that the king, no law applies to the king because the king makes law.
Right, exactly.
Now, our politicians seem to think that since they make law, no law applies to them.
Yeah.
It actually is a question of the acceptance of the applicability of the rule of law. You see, rule of law is quite weak in the country today, and how it is often a test of how powerful one is how many laws one can break. If I am authorized with a red beacon on my vehicle to cross a red light on a traffic intersection, I have power. So it is the same thing that, we will make a law which will apply to everybody in the country except for us. That is not rule of law, and that is not democracy. And people in India are, I think, much more aware and alive today than they were, let's say, 20 years ago or 10, 15 years ago. It is not going to be so easy in the final analysis.
Yeah.
But it will have to be struggled for. It will not happen easily.
Yeah, I mean, especially with amending RTI, the ruling party has full support of opposition, so they're all together. Yeah, so it doesn't look like anybody is going to stop. But as far as public, we need to do something. And the way we have seen Jan Lokpal, I mean, the massive rallies and there's hunger strikes and all that. But at this point, is there anything creative? Because every time you do it 2 or 3 times, then even the media is not interested. So they need some creative stuff. So do you know of any creatives to grab attention of either media or the larger section of population?
Well, I think we don't actually, people are agitated enough. And the question is not to bring things to a head in terms of, somebody going on hunger strike and saying that I will die unless this is done, because that may or may not happen and the person may die. And as far as media is concerned, I think media also knows what is good for the country and what is good for itself. And media reports what it considers will get its readership and viewership. And all actions related to this are fairly well and widely covered in the media. So there is a kind of I won't call it a groundswell, but there is adequate, significant public opinion which is against the amendment of the RTI Act. And let us see, the game is still on. The game is not over by any means. There have been some minor reverses, but people are still asserting themselves, and they will continue to do so.
Yeah. And is there anything specifically that you can think of that NRIs can do? Because from NRI Samay, there is an initiative to have folks, Indian citizens who are living abroad, or even the Indian citizens living in India, to call MPs, to call if they know any contacts for a member of parliament. So they're calling, a lot of NRIs are calling them and asking not to amend RTI. Can you think of anything else that people across the world?
Oh, I think the only thing that can be done is to flood the MPs and all other political leaders. There is also a difficult situation because a large number of MPs do not have any say in what their leaders do. But still, it is worthwhile putting pressure on the MPs as much as can be, and then also write to or call their leaders. As much public opinion as can be mobilized must be mobilized, because this is an extremely critical moment, because if RTI is amended like this, once it is amended, then it will open a floodgate of amendments. Yeah. So far in the last 8 years, there has been no amendment. Every 3 to 6 months, the government has tried to amend it, and the civil society has been able to stop those amendments. So this is actually an inflection point where everybody should do the best they can to stop this from happening.
Yeah, because then every time they'll exclude one department or one section of.
The RTI Act will completely lose its relevance.
Yeah.
In addition to calling, people can send text messages to MPs or to political leaders, or any way they can communicate with them is absolutely necessary.
Right. And especially ADR has a lot of experience and background in fighting corruption, like you mentioned, disclosing criminal background. And your website is rich of information, great information. But as far as taking this to the grassroots and maybe poorer section of people, is there any ground level activity that ADR is doing?
Oh, ADR is actually more of a ground level organization than a top level organization. We have about 1,200 groups in various states who work with us, and they take this data to the ground level. We have gatherings in various states. For example, I will be in Patna on the 5th, where people from all the districts will come, and all NGOs and civil society groups. They carry this information down to the grassroots and they carry the information by way of posters and handbills. They get printed and they distribute. These handbills are read out in villages. So there is a whole lot of grassroots activity, which is not visible on the internet, unfortunately, but it is happening every day.
Yeah, that is excellent. And is there any message you would like to give to the NRIs? Or other question I want to ask is, if somebody who is listening to this show and they are motivated either to support your efforts or the ADR efforts or do something about the RTI, what are the avenues? How should they reach you or join the movement? Can you give some information on that?
Well, they can reach me by email. My email is jchhokar@gmail.com. Let me repeat this. jchhokar@gmail.com. They can also go to the ADR website, which is www.adrindia.org. They can get all the information, and there are tabs on the website which tells you how can you get involved, how can you support, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the website. There's a lot of information, folks. I'll repeat it, adrindia.org. That's Association for Democratic Reforms. We'll put this information, both the website address and also the email address that Sir just mentioned. We'll put that information on the website, and you can contact directly or go to the website and join the movement. This is very important, like Jagdish sir was telling. This is just the beginning. They want to amend once, and then it becomes a norm. So every 6 months they could take out a department in the government, and then the RTI has, we probably don't even, lose RTI itself, the essence of it. Sir, Jagdish sir, thank you very much for spending a lot of time with us and explaining the issue we have on hand. And I wish you and also everybody who is involved in this movement a good luck, and hopefully we'll keep the RTI intact.
Well, we certainly hope so, and I hope your listeners will do whatever they can to help in this effort.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.